So back again with yet another development in our saga as caring for my mother continues to evolve. This recent return trip to the emergency room in order to deal with the fluid in the lungs that it ended up not being the first thing that they did, but multiple things happen, including then that she was able to receive her chemo treatment, her first treatment, and then had to do a blood transfusion, and did so amazingly well with that we thought this is going to be easy. Fateful words you just never want to probably even think about, honestly, for fear of casting any illusion that you have a clue of what's going on, because immediately the next day it's something else. And so we have been dealing with this situation that the lungs still needed to be drained. And I had to be out of the area for a few of the days that she was still in the hospital. Ended up being a good thing, I thought, because of course she's going to be taken care of. But of course when I come back, it's a matter of getting into it. Where is she at? What's going on? Why hasn't this problem solved? Or why haven't we drained the lung? And then the discussion is, well, she needs to have this additional machine, and this breathing machine helping her to breathe at night is not something readily available for home use. A different version, yes, but not this specific one. And so if she really needs it, then we can't release her. We have to understand what's going on. So you get this indication and you think that you have clear understanding on what is needed. And then the next day, it's like you're talking to a different person. They didn't know what the other right hand, left hander is doing. Nobody reads the full commentary in the machine of their computer with all of the notes. They just see the last entry, or they just see the part that they are particularly interested in. And my level of frustration, as with most people's, continued to escalate as a result of why is there so much hesitancy back and forth? Like, we came to the hospital for the lungs to be drained. Her lungs still had not been drained. And that was my discussion on Wednesday night. Wednesday night, she had to have this use of the machine. Thursday, they finally take her down and they drain the lungs. And now it's a matter of, okay, if she doesn't need the machine tonight, we're all good. Come in Friday, yep, she had to have the machine. And I literally was scratching my head like, this doesn't make any sense to me. I just don't understand. So dive deep, really require that doctor conversation to say, explain to me what's going on. I'm at the hospital on Saturday trying to figure this out. Just missed the pulmonary doctor, which is so frustrating in itself, that you know that they have rounds to make, you know that they have their own situation that they're dealing with. But as a family member, I'm coming to the hospital specifically to get information. And if you came earlier than you have been coming, that's not really shame on me. That's probably shame on you. If you give me a range and it's 9 to 12 and I'm there between that time and there's no indication, no word, no visit, then I'm also not at fault when you show up at 1:30. I still have to do what I have to do, but I am trying to facilitate the information, the care, and the conversation with and behalf of my mother. So this frustration just continued to build and build, and I had enough. And Saturday, when this pulmonary doctor said, because now they called in and said, okay, well, it could be a result of congested heart failure. Really? That's the first time this has been said. Like, why are we, okay, we have another path to figure out. So didn't know when a cardiologist would come by, didn't know what kind of testing they would do or anything like that. But you put your mind around this. If this is the problem, how do we fix it? How do we decipher what's causing this problem? And how do I make it better? I'm trying to make it better. I'm trying to make it better for her. And ideally, yes, if she needs medical care and attention, then the hospital is the place for her. If she just needs health oversight, continuation of care physically being loved and taken care of, that is best done by me in our home, so that she doesn't have to worry about somebody interrupting her at 11:30 at night because she just finally got some sleep, and now they decide this is when they want to come in and turn her or ask if she's okay. Obviously, if she's asleep, she's okay. I mean, I don't understand. But I get to this point on Saturday after talking to this doctor. I give my mom the pep talk about, you've got this. We've already come through the hardest part. This is nothing. If this is just a matter of the lungs breathing and a matter of where the fluid is coming from, we can dissect this. We can do what we need to do. I can get you up and moving. I can get you back into a normal routine situation, and we can deal with this. Whether or not this machine is needed, that's the big question. So I'm going to stay the night. Tonight, I will stay the night with you in the hospital, and I will listen to you breathe, and I will monitor what is happening with you. And for whatever amount of relief that gave her, she continued through the day. She did well enough and sent me what her dinner request was. So thank you, China Cottage, for your garlic chicken, because that's what she wanted. And I picked it up, brought her dinner, and we had a nice little dinner together in the hospital. And I just relayed to her what was going on. Actually, we were ahead of the dinner service of the hospital, which was surprising because that was 7:30 when they started bringing food around. And she's like, she was hungry when I got there at 6:30. So I was like, I told you I'd be here about this time. I didn't realize I'd be beating the hospital, but let's get you fed. Appetite has not been a problem. Energy level comes and goes, but she ate a lot. She enjoyed the food. And then it was like, okay, now I can settle in. Now I can take whatever medicines I need to take for the night. Of course, at this time you have shift change that's going on at the hospital, which in itself is a whole different rant that I could go on about. I understand handing off one position to the other. I understand all of it, but you literally are in a lockdown situation that if you need assistance between that hour of when they are doing shift change, you're going to wait. We happened to time it wrong, so we ended up waiting. Now, I'm only going to wait so long before I just go ahead and assist my mom in the things that I know that I can do. And if she's uncomfortable, I'm going to change her position. The bed alarm will go off. I can turn that off. I can answer the call if they respond. I can do any of that. Not trying to circumvent their services, but I'm also trying to make sure that she is taken care of. And I really was a little surprised, frustrated, taken back by what they had done for her undergarment. So she wasn't in a pure wick situation where it's an external catheter to drain for her. She doesn't have the side potty chair where she could be gotten up and gone to the bathroom, which is what we had been doing at home. And now what they had resorted to was use of what they call a chuck, which is basically a big absorbent pad that they just push between her legs. And I'm like mortified. Why is that acceptable? And I'm looking at my mother and I'm like, is there a reason why the PureWick that you liked, that you've used all this time, well, they said it wasn't working. Okay, they said it wasn't working, so they resorted to a pad between your legs. Like, you're just supposed to pee on yourself. I don't understand that. That's not comfortable. It wouldn't be comfortable for me. And I certainly don't think it's comfortable for somebody who can't do for themselves, who's so fragile and tiny that a wrinkle in the bedding is uncomfortable because it braces up against the bed sore. And here they've got this, I'm going to call it a 24 by 18 pad stuck between her legs, and she's supposed to be able to lay in bed with this bunched up underneath her, and I could lose it at this point. Not understanding why is this the option. Why? Does not make sense. Get her through, get her positioned. Nurse comes in. This is the nurse that confirmed that the information wasn't put in correctly in the charting. So yes, she did take the BPAP machine the night before. This nurse validated that, confirmed that that is legitimate. And I said, well, that's why I'm here. I'm here to spend the night so that I can watch over her, so that I can see why she needs it, if she needs it, and what's actually happening. Oh, that's great. That's great. Chatty chat, do all the stuff. They give her oxycodone, which we've kind of had conversations before about. It's probably not what she needs. She doesn't have that level of pain, and it really just wipes her out. But they did, and so at 8:15 they gave her this, and I'm like, okay. So she finished eating at 7. We had to wait until they could get her up in the bed. Now it's 8:15. Now they've given her medicine where she could technically fall asleep, and she gets drowsy, so we got her in the bed position, and literally it's 15 minutes later they come in to check the vitals. They come in, they do, okay, does she need to change her position? And I'm like, she's just starting to doze off. When the patient is just starting to doze off, you don't want to wake them if you don't have to. It's like, let sleeping babies lie. Let them sleep when they sleep. And if you have to, you take a nap during that time. I feel this is so much a role reversal with my mother that I am back to that. I can wake up every hour if that's what's needed. I can still feel like I'm rested if I'm at least doing the sleeping in between. I can hear her from a distance to know if something's wrong with her breathing. So, well, nope, that was a different type of cough. Oh, that's a cry out. She needs to go to the bathroom. I'm tuned in that way, just as I was with my kids, just as I would hope others are with their family members, because we listen to that. We're tuned in to our family because we want to care for them. And in this position, knowing that she's sleeping and just now getting into where her breathing is settling and I can get into how is she doing, somebody else comes in and for whatever. Okay, so the vitals were necessary. We've got her on an automatic monitor. I don't know why the monitoring of that doesn't kick in and why the person physically has to come in. I could debate this all night long. I'm just saying from my perspective, sitting there trying to get my mother to sleep, this was a constant waking up, checking on, okay, let's do this, let's do that. Finally, it was going on 11 o'clock and the nurse's aide came in for vitals and she was sound asleep. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I'm really worried because her vitals are low. Let me take this again. So he keeps retaking. Blood pressure is low, like extremely low. And he's like, I don't know what to do, but I think I need to call the nurse. I need to call the doctor. And I said, wait a minute. She had oxy this evening, and that oxy will lower her blood pressure. It takes it completely, it bottoms it out. I have said this before. We took her off of it before. I'm not sure why we're back on it. Well, but that wasn't that long. That was too long ago. I said it was at 8:15 when they gave it to her. It's not yet 11 o'clock. Well, that's too long. It wouldn't. I said, it stays in her system. I don't know the technicalities. I'm just letting you know that this is consistent to what has happened before when she's been given the oxy. Well, I've got to let the nurse know. Okay, great. A few minutes later, nurse comes in, has the conversation. Okay, well, let me document this because we obviously don't want to keep having this question come up if that is the case. And I said, look, she's down in the bed. She was getting into a cradled position. She was comfortable and woken up for this, and the blood pressure was low. If we balance her up into the bed, I believe it will come back up and everything is good. She's not having any difficulty. Just need her to get some sleep. Okay, so we move her up in the bed, bounces up. The blood pressure bounces up to an acceptable level. She's going to make the notation. She's going to note about the medication, and she is going to just update the doctor so that he's aware. Great. Okay. Settle back in, lights out, go back to sleep. And she's still a little bit dozy because of medication, but it's starting to where it's going to be wearing off. And then you have that moment where, well, I might as well get up. Well, Mom, it's not yet time. It's midnight. sound asleep. It is 11:35 and the door opens, the light goes on, and in walks this person with this really bubbly personality, which most of the time would have been okay and maybe even warranted, but not at 11:35 at night when the patient was sleeping. And she comes in and she says, "Okay, Brenda, it's time. Let's get your breathing treatment going." And I'm like, no. Wait a minute. What are you talking about, breathing treatment? Well, her BiPAP machine. She needs her BiPAP machine. I said, wait, she actually doesn't need the BiPAP machine. She was sound asleep when you came in. She was breathing well on her own. She wasn't in any kind of distress. She didn't need anything. And I absolutely get it. Somebody out there is going to say, chastise me, whatever you want. I get it, but I am speaking up for my mother who was not in a position and able to speak up for herself. And I stand by that. I understand the person has their job to do, but I am also going to say that the person who has the job to do didn't do her job in reading the full notes, because it was clearly noted in the system that this was as needed, which means if the patient had a breathing difficulty and was not able to breathe on their own, call for help. Yes, get the BiPAP machine going. Makes perfect sense. Here I am being held off on being able to get my mother discharged because of what was perceived as a need for her to have this machine in order to breathe. And it ended up not being the case, because I saw immediately then in that moment what was going on. Somebody was doing what they thought was their job, disagree or not, and waking up the patient in the middle of the night, who then is groggy, who had medication in her system, who's not fully at that point able to communicate what's going on. Okay, yes, oh, okay, I need to do this, fine. Consenting because she needs to do this, as the comment is made from the therapist. I am sorry, but I disagree with that, and I let it be known that was not the case. She did not have an issue with her breathing. She did not need to have this machine, and this machine is actually what's preventing her from being released for home. So thank you very much, but I will update it. You can tell the doctor. I'm happy to talk to them. I'm happy to talk to the nurse, whoever you need to send in here, but this is not necessary at this moment. It is not needed. And the nurse then came in 15 minutes later, wants to find out, and indicated this was not the same person who failed to note in the system the night before. So she wanted to make sure maybe that I wasn't holding a grudge. Said, I get that. However, the way that she came in, the way that it was commented and presented to my mother, who is the patient, of course she's going to accept that treatment. Of course she's going to say she needs that treatment. But she didn't, and she was sound asleep, and all I'm trying to do is say, was there a problem that created an issue that she couldn't come home, where I could care for her and she needed to stay under medical care? That's it. That's all. Because we've come through the chemo, we've got the diagnosis, we've gotten the lungs now cleared. So why are we still here and taking up an issue? The nurse understood, relayed, documented, showed me the documentation in the system, exactly how it was written, that this order was put in for the BiPAP machine as needed, if needed, and that was it. So they may need to reapproach how they look at that. As needed doesn't mean you come in and say it's time for. If you need to ask, hey, how you doing as you're breathing? Or maybe listen to their breathing before you just come in and assume they need it. I don't know. I guess that's just a layperson, somebody on the outside without any medical experience trying to figure out what needs to really happen. But I would have been upset if it had been me. I would have been upset if it had been my child. I am certainly upset that it's my mother. And honestly, just because you have a medical degree doesn't mean you're doing the best thing. So you have to have some conversation and some communication with the family member, if not with the patient, to understand really what's going on. What is our goal for the day? Every day they write a little goal up on the board. Well, you know what? Maybe you really need to communicate with us as to what is that goal. And let's work together towards that, because my goal is for my mom to come home and to be able to live healthy and happy again. If that means she has to take medicine, if that means she has to do treatments, if that means she has to come back to the hospital, all of those things we will accommodate. But at the point that you've done your job, let me do mine. I'm going to take care of her. And I felt that I had the answer that I needed, that it wasn't a requirement for her body, that she wasn't having this potential congested heart failure, that her lungs weren't filling up in the deep of the night, that there wasn't something else happening that was going to be an issue to stop her from coming home. And finally get her back to sleep, go through. She got about 4.5 hours of solid sleep at that time. It took comforting, me holding her hand just to say, I'm here. I got you. It's okay. It made her so anxious, and I am responsible for that as well, because I did snap. I did say, look, this isn't necessary. Let's not do this way. I know that I'm trying to protect her. And I know that they are trying to do their job. And I'm not bashing anybody for doing their job. I'm just saying that the notations were there, that there was a reason why this isn't just an automatic, let's do this type of thing. And if that was stated in the beginning, hours in advance of you walking into the room and flipping on the light and saying, well, let's do this thing, then you can understand why I would be upset. And all I wanted to know was my mom okay? Can she breathe through the night? Is this something that we can get through? And I got that answer that yes, it is. And I wanted them to know, and I wanted it to be documented, and I wanted the doctors to be aware. And so at 6 o'clock this morning, they brought in the x-ray machine because they needed to see, and they wanted to do a scan of her lungs to make sure there wasn't any fluid buildup. We wanted to see what's the marker if we're going to release her, if she doesn't need the BiPAP and she doesn't have lung fluid coming back into the lungs, are we good to go ahead and get her released? So that's where we are. We're moving towards that as an answer because the fluid hasn't accumulated again. That may be gradual. And like I said, if it's every 3 weeks, we can deal with that. We'll do whatever we have to. But her laying in a bed in a position where she's not really able to do anything for herself is not helping that situation. And I want to help that situation. Non-medically, help her to get that better, right? Movement is what the body needs. And it took all of that and a new nurse coming in, getting up to speed, because again, you've got this great computer system with all of these notations and reports and tests and everything. And the person who's coming in is only interested in their one little piece. And as the family member, I'm here trying to collect all of this data and information and processes it so that it makes sense for what it is that we need to be doing. How do we deal with this now when we take her home? And so I give the quick synopsis rundown, and it amazes me every time that people just made the assumption, this poor little lady, always been on oxygen, always been frail, and it's like, that is not the situation. Please stop looking at my mother in that respect. She was fully vibrant, fully independent, and functionable without the use of oxygen, without any medication. And now I understand the situation may have changed some because of the lymphoma, but it doesn't mean all the rest of this is now required, mandatory moving forward. And when I get that look of recognition, oh, okay, well, that makes a difference. Yes, I know it does. It makes a difference on how that person is perceived and how they're probably being handled by that person who's come into the room. So as the advocate for your family member, I'm going to tell you that's your number one goal, is to make sure that you ask the questions, that you get the answers, that you understand, that you know the history and the personal needs of your family member so that you are the person who's going to bring it all together. Because the computer system doesn't come out and spit it out and say, oh, here's the magic answer. Nope. Oncology is going to look at what they need. Radiology is going to look at what they need. And nurse is going to look at what she needs. And the dietitian is going to look at all these different components are separate and apart. And no one person that I have found yet is bringing all of that information together. So that's my role. That's what I did. Sleeping through the night at the hospital, I didn't sleep at all. I was there, I was with her, I was listening to her breathe, and I was taking the notes of what was happening throughout the night. Why does she always say that she's so exhausted the next day? I don't understand it. For me, I took it as a good news. Guess what, Mom? When you come home, I know you're going to rest. And you know what? We're going to put you on a schedule so that we know when things are going to happen, so that you can create this routine for your body of when you need to go to the bathroom. Okay, now we can do a cleanup. Okay, now we can schedule some time for activities. Okay, now maybe it's nap time. We can set a schedule that allows your body to get into a routine instead of constantly being influxed and not sure what's happening next. Oh, who's this? Oh, wait, now I got to do that. That constant chaos on somebody who is so frail and so out of it with medication at some moments is just not even, I don't even know how that's caring for them. Again, I love the care that we've gotten. I know that it has been life-saving for her. I am not knocking it. I'm just saying that there are better ways. There is a better path forward for this. And all I'm trying to do is accommodate that for my mother. I have hope today that I know that she's going to be released tomorrow, pending no other issues or anything else that goes on, and that we're going to give her the care and the attention and the opportunity to rest when she needs it, to sleep, to eat, to do whatever, and to know that the next appointment, we'll deal with what that is. But right now, moment by moment, we know that we can prepare for her a place where she's going to be comfortable, where she's not going to be interrupted, where she could get back into a routine, and that healing process can actually begin, that I think is so critical for what she needs now. And so, all of that to be said, maybe sometimes you need to sleep in the hospital with your loved one so that you understand exactly what is going on. And I think that's your right, and they can't stop you from doing that unless there is a medical reason why you can't be there. You don't want to get in the way, obviously. You got to make sure that you aren't impeding on what they're doing. But good common sense also goes a long way in a family knowing their family member has got to say that it sticks and gives them credence there as well. So hope that helps somebody out there, and hopefully our battle continues, but not in that way, and we can battle against the cancer and get back to our travels if that's the case and what she wants to do. But at least enjoying each other and getting that time together. Thank you so much.